The Art of Yes. Interview with David Razowsky.
Oh, are we meeting in here?
Yeah, it's here. Welcome.
Okay. I'm here. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi.
Hi.
I like this place.
Welcome at my home.
Oh, I really like it a lot. You got a lot of books.
Yeah, I like reading, and nice to see you. It's great that you came to Warsaw to visit me.
Oh my God, I'm so glad that I was able to do that. You know, I wasn't doing anything, not a lot of work. So I thought, why don't I just stop by Monica's place and we can have a chat.
Yeah, it's big.
This is nice. It's really, it's a big room.
It is.
Yeah, that's really good. Mm-hmm.
Do you wanna sit down?
How have you been? Yeah, I'll sit
down.
I'll sit down. Okay, good. All right, great. Oh.
Woo.
Thanks for the water.
Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So how was your travel?
It was weird. Like it seemed like just a moment ago I was in my kitchen, and now I'm in your house. It was a lot less stressful than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's magic.
It seems like magic. There's something very magical about the whole thing. Really good. It has a feel of a room that's in my place, so maybe that's why I feel so comfortable here.
Yeah, I wanted you to feel home.
At home, yeah, I do feel at home. I really feel at home. Yeah, this really looks like a room that I have at my house. But it's not. Of course, it's your place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good, cool.
So, David, shall we start?
Let's do that. I thought we already did. I thought we already started, but yeah.
Sure, we started.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How's life? How is life in quarantine?
It's one adjustment after another.
Right.
You know, it's sort of like working with an improv partner that you don't trust their moves. So everything's like, oh, we're going to do that now? Are we going to do that? I guess we're going to be doing that scene. Okay. And then you wake up and you go, oh, right. Just when you thought everything was fine. Especially, I think politically, that's really where I am. You know, where you go, oh my God, what fresh hell. But it really has a feeling of working with an improv partner who you don't trust. Everything's improv. Everything is improv. So that's what's happening. You know, it's okay. It's okay. I'm keeping busy. I'm writing the book that you helped Beta read, and the next part of the book that you didn't read was we're adding I think I told you we're adding a memoir part. We added a memoir part, so that added another 75 pages onto the book, and we'll see if people are interested in any of the bullshit that I've done. But that's about 3 hours of my day, you know, spent working with my editor on how does this sound and how does this sound, like pouring over every single word.
So it's moving forward.
Yeah. I'm surprised how many pages it has. How big the book is. It's probably going to be around 300 pages, a little more than 300 pages.
That's a lot.
And it's a lot, but it's like 3 years of work.
That's long. I didn't know it took so long.
Well, the first part, somebody once said, and maybe you and I talked about this, somebody once said, the first draft is for you. So the first draft to write, the first draft is for you. And then the subsequent drafts is for everyone else. And that's when it's really hard. Like those other drafts are really, really hard because you want to get notes from people, and I work really closely with my editor, Vera Cole. I work very, very closely with her, and it gets to be heated at times because she has she has a very professional outlook, and I'm like, whatever, we can leave that there, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, to me it makes sense. She goes, yeah, but you want other people to read the book.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and when I made you one of the beta readers, and the notes that you gave were really, really great notes, and they were extensive. And you always hope that somebody says, "Oh my gosh, I read the entire book," and there were no changes at all that needs to happen. And at that point, you think, "Great," but that never happens. That's not going to happen. That's not what happens.
David, probably some people will watch us later, so I wanted to introduce you a little bit, not like talking too much because I don't know so much. That's why I want to talk with you through some stuff. But you come from Chicago. You live now in LA, and you grew up there. You were
I grew up in Chicago.
Yes, you grew up in Chicago.
And I moved to LA 25 years ago.
That's already a long time.
Yeah, I'm 60, which is already a long time.
So you connected to improv and acting, and you did a lot of that since you were quite young, right? How did all started? Because you were later in Second City, and you were a director there. So let's go from the beginning. How did you start to act or improvise or both? I don't know how they were connected in that time.
No. That's a good point, because you have to remember that, let's see, I started acting when I was 9 or 10. And so I'm 61. So I'm going on at least 52 years of acting. And when I started acting in 1960, 67, 68, there weren't any improv schools. There were no improv schools, and when I say there are no improv schools, I'm pretty sure there were none. So I started acting, and what was happening, the acting then was, I think that there were improv games that people were playing, the teachers that I had when I was younger, the directors that I had when I was younger, and it was mostly probably Viola Spolin Viola Spolin games. And we didn't consider them improv games, we considered them theater games, acting exercises. And when you're younger, they're acting exercises, and you learn how to act. So acting and improvisation, to me, have always been so connected. I think that there are a lot of people who, and we've talked about it before, but there are a lot of students that I had where I say all improv is acting. And once you consider yourself an actor, what ends up happening is you take the work on, the work becomes deeper. And you feel like if you say, I'm an actor who improvises, that gives you a long tail. It gives you a tail that's 3,000 years long. And you get all the theater that has ever gone on, all the rituals that have ever gone on. You get to incorporate those in your improvisation. So I started doing acting when I was 8 or 9, and I started performing when I was probably 10 or 11, and I pretty much haven't stopped performing since then. So that's been, again, 51 years. I took 5 years off to get a degree in photojournalism from school. I did a little bit of photography, professional photography, photo editing, but for the most part, I could never get theater out of my blood. I just couldn't get it out of my system. And particularly, I've been around. I happen to have been in Chicago. I happen to have lived in Chicago and be in Chicago when the golden age of improvisation started, and when theater was really happening in Chicago. which is a really, really exciting time. Little theaters opened up all over the world. Little theaters opened up all over Chicago. There were some really great theater companies and really great actors. Then when I started taking acting improv classes, because there were so few improv companies back then, all the improv classes that I took were taught by acting teachers and actors. Now, most of the improv that you take classes with improvisers, most of the teachers that teach improv are improvisers.
Improvisers, not actors.
Are not actors. Are improvisers who don't consider themselves actors. And there's something that's missing there. And I'm not gonna go, because that's just the way it is. But I think that we would all do ourselves a really large favor by taking an acting class, by being in a play, by studying acting. Because once you do that, everything matters in a different way. The way you're standing matters, the way you walk matters, your volume matters. And
everything, confidence and speaking, right? Not being afraid of silence and space and all of this, which improvisers usually are afraid of to do.
Yeah, and my question is, why are you afraid to do that? I mean, I know you're not afraid to do that, but why are people afraid to do that? And I think a lot of actors, I feel like, why are you in a hurry to get off stage? Why are you in a hurry to get through your scene? Why don't you just be with your partner in that moment and not worry about, just let the moments happen. I think that a lot of improvisers are afraid of the moment. But the moments make up a great scene. Those pauses, those moments to reflect, those moments to just let something sink in, those are lost. And they're lost because I think people are in a hurry, and I think they're also lost because people are in a hurry, and I think people are in a hurry because they don't have confidence in the quiet. They don't have confidence in that moment that we're taking.
Yeah.
But life is full of moments.
I thought today about your teaching, about how you teach in the end acting, and for me you teach two things. You teach acting and you teach being present, which doesn't happen too much on the workshops, but teaching acting is teaching reacting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel, because it's not about pretending or doing something which we imagine is happening. It's just reacting what our partner does, and this is for me also a very big missing point. So I see a lot of that in your teaching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot who said it. It might have been Elaine May, who said acting is reacting.
Oh.
And I don't know. I mean, for me, I think it's Elaine May.
Maybe.
Acting is reacting, and so to have a methodology that includes being mindful, being aware, being present to what's happening, that lends itself well to reacting, to saying whatever it is that you're doing, I'm in reaction to that. Whatever it is that's happening, I'm in reaction to that. And I owe it to you and I owe it to myself that when you do something that moves me, that changes me, that I am moved and changed. But if the thing that I'm most concerned about is what we look like, or is it funny, or what's the story that's being told, we're really going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to react.
Yeah, not seeing.
I'm almost done with my candy.
What's that? What taste? What taste is it?
It's peppermint. It's a peppermint candy. You ever see those red and white? They're red and white hard candies.
Yeah, we have the powder mint, the white powder mint.
Oh yeah. These are harder than those powder mints. Those are harder. I know those mints. I like any red and white candy. If you don't brush your teeth, it will ruin your teeth. So I'm done with that. I just wanted to make sure people didn't think I was drunk. But being in the moment, being present, being aware to what's happening in that moment is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. And it's also, I don't want people to think. I want people to feel and to be in reaction to any feelings that they have. And that's vital.
when I used to do some martial arts like Tai Chi, we used to say, you change, I change, which is basically the same thing, that you don't change before somebody changes. And if your partner changes, you have to follow. So in the end, this is Viola's follow the follower thing. That it's moving together. We move with partners, right?
Right. I thought of something the other day that I hadn't thought of. It was brought up, and I used to teach this. So I'm always thinking about that first beat of the scene, and I was thinking that I talk about how it feels like we're inflating a balloon. In that scene, and we're both breathing air into that balloon, and the air that we're breathing in that balloon is, I have my point of view and you have your point of view, my point of view, your point of view, and eventually we want that balloon to pop. Well, I used to do this, and I haven't thought about this metaphor in a while, and the metaphor is this: a chick inside of an egg. And a chick, it starts inside of an egg as something very tiny, and as the chick grows, it starts to fill up that egg. And as it gets larger and larger, and at one point it will reach the top of the egg, right? And the egg is constructed so that it doesn't pop right away. The egg is constructed so that the chick pushes up against it and becomes stronger and stronger and stronger as it gives resistance as the egg gives resistance to it, and it builds up muscles, if you will. And then what ends up happening is the egg breaks.
Yeah, right.
And when the egg breaks, the chick doesn't wish for a bigger egg. The chick wants to walk around and check out the new beat. So when we're in a scene together, we are that chick pushing up, growing within that beat until that shell breaks, and then we're like, here, I'm new. This is new. This is all new. I'm new. This is new. Let's do it. But we have to push up against each other.
Yeah.
And we have to have that reaction.
I just had, remind me this metaphor, similar metaphor from another book, which is The Art of Learning, from the guy who was American champion in chess. And it's not about tension, but it's about growing, so going out. And he describes in the way of crab and being in the shell, and the crab is growing. And there is a certain point that you have to get vulnerable and go out of this shell to change to another bigger one. So close to your metaphor about pumping the scene, this is about also growing in life and in improv, to go and follow the fear to find something new.
I think that there's also just to add a third metaphor, because rule of threes is there's a point when a caterpillar something's happening. The caterpillar knows something's happening. He doesn't know what it is, or it doesn't know what it is. And it starts to, slowly become a butterfly, evolve into a butterfly. And it fights it. It doesn't want to, it wants to stay the same. And there's this, and I don't know exactly the word, and I bet there's somebody that's listening to this and knows the word. When that caterpillar decides, I give up, I surrender to this new thing that I am, and then gets the cocoon, probably within the cocoon, and then becomes this butterfly and is able to totally change into a different thing. And we love watching something where a character has one point of view at the beginning of the scene or its life, and it's different at the end. If there isn't change, there's no reason for me to watch it.
Right. Yeah. So I would like to go back a little bit again to this beginning, just for a little while, because you said that there was a difference between teaching or learning at that point for you in these times to these times we have now, because there were no schools. There is so many. There were not so many teachers. There are pretty many. I wonder, because I have no access to it, as like historically I haven't been there. how was it to learn in that time? How was this community growing? How the workshops were? Because I have a feeling that in those days there was like one teacher having a group which worked for a long time together, that they could like having a big project, I don't know, building a theater maybe or whatever. But I think it was a bit different than now. Like you have courses, you just jump somewhere from festival to festival, from workshop to workshop. And I think it was more condensed, and one teacher had access to students for a long time, so he could guide them more precisely, and very different than it's happening now.
That's great. That's a really great question. That's such a great question. I was interviewed yesterday by this journalist, Jack Helbig, who was also at Improv Olympic when I started with Del Close back in the late 80s, and he was there too. He's writing an oral history of improvisation between the 80s and the 90s, and it's great to talk to him. And I was the first person that he interviewed. And it's interesting because we talked about Del Close. So when I first started in 86, 87, whatever, 85, 86, 87, there was Players Workshop, which was part of Second City. There was Second City. There was Improv Olympic, which became IO. And I believe there was Dudley Riggs, which was in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So the people that studied with Del taught this thing called the Herald, which is, we all know what the Herald is. Del taught this thing with the Herald. He was the only person teaching that long form at the time, as far as I know. So he had a bunch of students who had, and keep this in mind, these students had never, ever heard of it, studied it, knew of it. There wasn't anyone teaching it other than Del. Mm-hmm. So it was a really, really exciting time. And everybody was into the idea of, we're creating something new. We're experimenting with this. It can't be broken. Everybody would come in and just be so excited about this thing that was happening because no one else was doing it. And it was this little secret that we had. And it was also pride that we had. And it was the frustration of, are we going to get it right? And what is this about? So when you work with one teacher, and of course we had to work with one teacher because, as far as I know, there wasn't another long-form improv teacher. And when you work with one improv teacher, and this one improv teacher, and I'll say this about Del, one of his main things was, let's change this thing. Let's make this the Herald an evolving thing. Let's make long-form an evolving thing. And you had all these students who were really into that as well. It was the perfect greenhouse to produce this wonderful art form that we're at right now. And my conversation with Jack also involved this, where it was Del couldn't work with his peers to do this because he was one of the people that started Second City. He was a director at Second City. He was also he was at the committee in San Francisco. And I mean, he was all over the place, but I believe that he had a different relationship with his students than he did with his peers. His peers knew that, he was equal to these people, but these students looked up to him. Mm-hmm. And Del would go to different cities and work with different people and then come back to Chicago. And then suddenly all these people from all these places came to Chicago to study with him. Because again, Monica, there wasn't anyone doing this. And those of us who were around at that time, we couldn't get enough. We couldn't get enough of this. And keep in mind also, I think this has to be remembered, Heralds back then, which are typically 20 minutes, 25 minutes, were 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that's a long time. 40 minutes on stage with, 6 to 8 people. But what ended up happening, because it was 40 minutes, everything took time and every piece could evolve. And Del worked with creating a time dash and moving to a place where we evolved through a character story, and how important that was. Really pretty fantastic.
So before you start, because as far as I know, as far as I remember from the books, Del started it to make the form where not creating long form, but the form where people can do stuff together in like more than 2 people playing the scene, right? So there was a lot of people involving in one story and in one, even if with the games in between. all team could do something together. So I think originally this came from that. Am I right, or this?
Yeah,
is...
sure. I mean, the idea of a group scene, a group game, a cast, a group mind, and Dell was really into the concept of the gestalt, like what's everybody feeling at that time. And the beautiful thing, when I think about the Herald, somebody said, well, what's the Herald about? It's about this. It's about getting 6 disparate elements to agree to one thing. It's 6 different things going in 6 different directions. Let them go in that direction, and then discovering how we can create something wonderful with those 6 things going in, 6 to 8 things, being people or cast members connecting. And so it required a sense of holding on to your point of view, being able to surrender, accepting what it is that's going on, but listening on a deep tissue level, listening on a level that historically people don't listen on. And to know that you may think that your body ends here, but we're actually permeable membranes. You know, you get yourself on me when we're working together. I'm allowing you to come inside, to get inside of my head, and you're asking me to get inside of your head. And whenever we go back to what you were saying, which is it's not reacting, it's not acting, it's reacting. So when I'm watching what it is that you're doing, because I remember that's where I first did the machine. Remember the machine?
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody started, you know, that workout where somebody goes,
We
and then
somebody
does this, right? We both, if it doesn't do this, you're doing it wrong.
We have the same machine. Finally, you are at my home, right?
Exactly. It's the same machine in Poland as it is in the United States. But it's that idea of I'm going to start something and you're going to join in on it. And it used to be an opening that we would do for the Herald is, you know, what does this mean? What does this part mean? And just be in total and absolute agreement to what is going on. But so, yeah, it was about the group.
So what did you do before Harold? So was playing the games, or how did it look like before the long form started with the?
I don't know. I wasn't, you know, for me, my so I went from college back to Chicago, where I auditioned for plays in 1983, 84. And then I auditioned for a company called Geese Theater Company in prisons. And that was a non-comedic improv company that went into prisons across the United States and worked with the incarcerated on problem solving, troubleshooting, connection, listening, and family. So we were doing, I guess you could say that was long form at that time because it was one piece, but it was very structured. And the Herald isn't very structured. So the only thing that I knew coming into Improv Olympic and the Herald and Dell was that sort of improvisation. So I don't know, you know, Dell did teach group games and we studied group games, but that's about all that I know about it. You know, that right there. You know, but you're right. His emphasis was on creating something for everybody because he felt like the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. You know, or whatever that phrase is. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That's it. The entire thing is more powerful than the little pieces put together. And when you would watch a cast at Improv Olympic, particularly Baron's Barracudas, which is the first, I think, official Herald team ever, you would look at them and they all studied Dell, and Dell was very sober and straight and he wasn't straight, but he was sober and he was clear-minded. And he knew what he wanted. And these people were great actors and very, very smart people. They were wise, they were learned, they were great actors, they connected. And that group, you said, again, each one individually was really great. Together, they were fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So my next question will be, I'm learning, I'm in process and like being a student. So I look at the improv also from students' point of view a lot, and I wonder what were your I would call challenges, but also there are these moments when something clicks, you know, because as improvisers, and especially young improvisers, we watch our teachers or stars and we think like they very good, they for sure have been like this forever and since ever, and they never struggle and never had a problem with doing improv. I would like to ask you what were your struggles, what were your discoveries, what was the click you got, and who gave you, maybe teacher or maybe moment, and maybe something which came unexpectedly from something. Yeah.
That's it's another good question. You're very good at these questions.
Thanks.
So I think that what you're asking is about an epiphany. You know, if I've had an epiphany or an epiphany that I remember. And I think the biggest epiphany that really opened up so many, as a young improviser, what really opened up so many doors was this. I remember walking away from doing a show at Improv Olympic again in the late 80s or mid late 80s. And I remember walking to a bar, going from the show to a bar, and it was probably 2 blocks away. And I remember walking and going, and having this weird feeling. And the weird feeling was, that went well. That went well. That show went well. And when I just stopped, and I remember having a cigarette on the street corner going, I'm not going to walk in that bar yet. I'm going to figure out what went well. And what went well was this. I was thinking, I stopped caring. I stopped caring about the outcome. The outcome didn't matter while I was doing the show. I remember thinking, I am doing this show, and wherever I think the scene is going to go doesn't matter. However way the audience, whatever the audience thinks about the way that I was performing, that doesn't matter. Whether I'm following the rules doesn't matter. All that matters right now is, am I with my partner? And it came soon after another revelation, which was this: just do whatever your partner is doing. Mm-hmm. When in doubt, mirror, because at least you know that you're not opposing what they're doing. You're together with that person, and just keep doing that. So I just a big thing that for me was, I stopped giving a shit. I just stopped caring. Mm-hmm. I stopped caring about what. I'll be clear. I stopped caring what people thought. Yeah. And that for me, that's a huge thing.
That's pretty freeing, right? I mean.
Oh yeah.
I think this is one of the problems we have as improvisers, that we judge and we have this small talk here, like, you doing this well, what happened, what's the aim, where the scene goes, did you do right the choice, blah blah blah, and then you are of course not with the partner, you are not present, you are not reacting because you think of what's going on. So it's freeing.
And you're in relationship. And
it's not easy to do, right?
Well, here's the thing. If you say, hold on, I want to make sure everything's turned up. If you say it's not easy to do, you're right. If you say that it's easy to do, you're right. So what do you want? You know, that's up to you. It's a conscious decision for you to go, wow, that's hard. And I'm like, if you say so. Yeah. Right. Or that's easy. It's like, if you say so. And for me, I'm going to take the one where it's like, a lot of things that I do. So the other day, something happened with our plumbing. And it was, something like something unscrewed and the faucet came out. And I thought, and my first reaction is this. And I know my first reaction is this: I can do this. I can fix that. I can do that. I can do that. And I say it. I don't even think about saying it. I just say it. I can do that. And when you go, I can do that, why not come into something and say, I can do that? Why not come into something and say, I'm going to have a good time? Why not come into something and say, I'm not going to judge myself? And when you say, I'm not going to judge myself, you then have to follow it up with, what are you going to do? Because you can't give yourself a don't note. You can give yourself a do note. So I'm going to not judge myself. So David, what are you going to do? I am going to be present to what's happening there and knowing that my partner is all that matters in this moment. So your decision to judge yourself is your choice. And whether you know that it's your choice or not, it's really your choice, because it's not a chronic problem that is in your DNA. It's something that you've decided to do. And when you're conscious of doing something, when you're doing something and you're conscious of doing that thing, you're more in control of what you're feeling in that moment. You may not be in control of what's happening, but you're in control of what you're emotionally doing. And at the core of all good improvisation is that being present to what you're feeling the moment that you're feeling it.
Yeah, feel the feelings you're feeling the moment you're feeling them.
Somebody should write that down. Feel the feelings you're feeling the moment you feel the feelings. And that's essentially everything that we're talking about. So what you're talking about when you say be in reaction to somebody, because that's really feel those feelings that you're getting from your partner, what they're doing in that moment.
All right. So I have some lists which like subjects or what I would like to talk about. But coming back to acting, I was wondering, do you think improvisers, they should take acting lessons, or do you think it's enough just to slow down and being more, responding, reacting, doing workshops like yours or other teachers who teaching a bit more grounded? It's not grounded scenes, it's just more being aware what partner does, right?
There's so much going on there. I think a major. I love taking an acting class. I've only taken one acting class in my life, really. I love taking an acting class, and I remember taking that scene study class, and I remember getting a tremendous amount out of that. And I took it for a year. But that was when I was in. I can't say I never took an acting class. When I was a young kid, I took an acting class, but again, that was mostly an improv class. But as an adult, I took one acting class, and it made me think about how scenes are created. I'm lucky again because I was at Second City and I got training at Second City. So I got training on how to create characters, how to create scenes, how to create dynamics, how to create improvisation, how to create written material through improvisation. And then I was able to work on my feet. So the more that an actor can work with professionals, the better off that actor is going to be. The more that an actor, I really have to be careful here. So I'm going to say it anyway. Improv teachers need to be harder on their students. Improv teachers need to be harsher and harder and more critical to what an improviser is doing. And that's what makes a good improv class, is the teacher. The teacher calling out students who are going off on a tangent. The teachers calling out students who are problematic and are really difficult to work with. The students who are just saying whatever comes to their mind, and the teacher going, boy, you have some quirky characters that you play. It's like, no, that guy is screwing up every single scene. And all that you need is one person in that class to screw it up. And if the teacher doesn't say, knock it off, Jim, or I saw what you did, or stop them right there, that class is not going to learn anything. Mm-hmm. And what they're going to learn is this: how to work with an ass. That's what they're going to learn. How to work with somebody. And that's not why I'm taking the class. I'm not taking the class. I'm taking the class to do one thing: to be more connected. That's why I'm taking the class. Not to see how we can learn how to play with Jim. You know what I mean? So when you're in my class, I'm not going to teach you 1,000 things. I'm going to teach you one thing in maybe 2 weeks, and we're going to work our asses off on repetitions on that. And we'll go back to your martial arts metaphor. The martial arts metaphor is work that move, work that move, work that move, work that move until you don't think about it anymore. And work that move, and know that this isn't, particularly the martial arts that you're probably mentioning, it's not about it's about taking the energy in as opposed to pushing the energy back. And a lot more teachers have to work with that. Like go, relax, be here, you're here. Mm-hmm. So is your improv teacher teaching you acting?
Right.
Because if your improv teacher is teaching you acting, then you don't really have to take an acting class, because you are taking an acting class, because all improv is acting.
Yeah.
Every single thing you do on stage, you're acting, whether you accept it or not, you're acting.
Great. That's great, and I love it, because I experienced that, and I think I also have a feeling a lot of people around me also say that they like this so-called slow comedy or whatever, because they like to have these grounded scenes, or just where they have time to respond, or where something can land. We call it, right? So there is time for that, even if we play fast, but we learn that to respond.
I think one of the problems is when you're teaching a class, or you're at a school where they teach you 3 things in one day, in a 3-hour class, certainly before we were in quarantine, but in a 3-hour class, you're teaching 3 things, and the students aren't able to really own the exercise that you're giving them, because you're teaching them all these things. So everything becomes rushed. And we're not teaching, and I'll throw ourselves in, we aren't teaching what it feels like to feel the feelings you're feeling the moment you feel the feelings. So all scenes have a feeling of desperation, and get to the next beat, get to the next moment, get to the next moment, get to the next moment. Not blowing up the balloon, not the chick in the egg, not the crab in the shell. We're saying, okay, we got to teach a Dutch door, and then we have to move on to teach you this exercise game. It's like, fuck that nonsense. Excuse my language, but yeah.
So coming back still to acting, you use something which is called viewpoints. What's that? What are viewpoints?
Say that again.
What are the viewpoints?
What are the viewpoints? My gosh, do you want me to go through all 9 viewpoints?
No, you can mention them, because
okay,
whatever you feel like it's yeah.
Okay, there's a woman named Mary Overly, an American, and Mary is a choreographer, and Mary would, this might be apocryphal, or it might really have happened, but Mary would look at dancers and go, why do I believe dancers, but I don't believe actors? And what she determined was, she broke dancing down into 6 viewpoints. And the viewpoints, and then these 2 women, Anne Bogart and Tina Landau, added 3 more viewpoints. So there are 9 viewpoints. I believe there are 11 now, but I'm a little bit behind on the education curve on that. And this sounds kind of weird, but the 9 viewpoints encapsulate everything. They define everything. From any physical move they define all the physical moves. And with the purpose of this, so that the work that you and I are doing isn't mental based. So the decisions that we're making aren't mental based, rather they're compulsion. What are you compelled to do? I am going to push you to do something, so that when you do it, you're doing it not because you think it's a good idea, but because emotionally you were compelled to do that. So one of the things that I teach, and I could get into it, but it would really, I could get into all of them, but they would really take up a lot of of this talk. So I'll go with the ones that I work on. And one of the main ones is, so one is kinesthetic response. A kinesthetic response is your reaction to a stimuli. Someone says your name, you turn, someone claps, you put your hand over your ears, whatever it's going to be. A siren goes by and you go, what's going on? You hear a boom and you react to it. Someone says bacon flavored bacon, and you want some of that. Nom, nom, nom. So when we're in an improv scene and something happens, if we're aware of our kinesthetic response, we are going to be aware that we've been moved. All right? Now I know that this isn't one of the viewpoints, but tabula rasa, an empty slate. To start a scene with an empty slate, so that when someone does something and you have a kinesthetic response to it, you get to be in reaction to that. And the moment that we're in reaction to a kinesthetic response, we go, that's the new now. That's the new, that's what's happening now. I'm engaged in that. That's one. Two, shape. All scenes, all of us are in shape. This is one shape. This is another shape. This is another shape. This is another shape. And all those different shapes have a different emotional quality to them. You know, and so for me, I don't take suggestions at the beginning of a scene. I'm just in reaction to somebody's shape. So I will look at someone and I will go, oh, they look like they're bored. And I'll say that inside of my head. And my line will be, Tina, it's gonna get more exciting. You have to trust me. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of what people call Meisner, but I really haven't studied any Meisner, but people call it Meisner. But shape is, you know, when you're noticing your partner's shape, you notice when their shape changes. And when their shape changes, you get a kinesthetic response to what they've changed, and you're able to know that they're doing it. Another thing is, tell me if you've had enough, and I'll stop.
No, fine.
Another one.
It's exciting for me.
Okay, all right, okay. Another one, and again, there's no order. There's no order of the viewpoints. So we have kinesthetic response, shape, duration. Duration means you, the actor, are aware that you're engaged in an action, in some kind of action. And it could be, I'm in duration of this shape. I'm going to be holding onto this shape until you, Monica, compel me to move.
Right.
I can also be in duration of, and this is another of the points, tempo. Tempo has a lot to do with it. What's the tempo with which we're talking? And if you say something and my tempo changes, I have a kinesthetic response to that tempo change. I know it. There, you know, right there, I go, I said something that made you do that, right? And so now I hope that you're thinking, a lot of this has nothing to do with you thinking. It has to do with you emotionally receiving something. So I can be in relationship to tempo, so I can also be in, I can be in duration of tempo. I can also be in duration of gesture. Gesture is another one of the viewpoints. There are two types of gestures. There's an expressive gesture and there's a behavioral gesture. Okay. There's an expressive gesture and there's a behavioral gesture. There's an expressive gesture and then there's a behavioral gesture, right? So that's one, is just both those gestures. So we can be in duration of gesture. We can be in duration of gesture. And at some point, if you say something in a scene and the gesture goes away, I know I have a kinesthetic response to something that you did. Or if you're saying, like right there, I got you and you started nodding. You weren't nodding before I said that. You had a kinesthetic response to my nodding, and your nodding was at a certain tempo. So when you stop nodding, that also says something too. And so what ends up happening is the more that you own the gestures, the more that you own the viewpoints, the more you notice every single thing. Because once you identify it, once you define something, it exists. And when it exists, you get to fuck with it. So if I'm watching my partner, and you've seen me improvise, and we just improvised and we'll improvise. I am watching everything that you're doing. I'm watching everything that you're doing. I'm listening to everything you're doing. I'm paying attention to everything you're doing. I'm in the moment with you each moment because you are about to tell me what I have to do. Mm-hmm. So another of the viewpoints is spatial relationship. It's the distance between things. So there isn't, it's not like how far or near something is. It's just a distance between things. So if I'm in a scene with you and you say something, so say something. Right? You just moved in, which compelled me to move back. If I move in like this, right? So it's not just what it is that we're saying. It's, you're doing it again. You're doing it again. It's not it's not just what you're saying, it's also what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing emotionally impacts me. And the more work that we do when we're making choices based upon emotional decisions, not ego decisions, the more we're and this is a big thing that I'm saying these days, is the more we're being the story instead of telling the story. Because really the choice is, do you want to be the story or do you want to tell the story? And who doesn't want to be the story? Because if you be the story, you don't have to think of anything. You're just in emotional response to what's happening. And if you're telling the story, then you get a suggestion, or you start out with, you know, the way that we all start out stories. Once upon a time, there was a maiden, and she was in a tower, and she was waiting for her prince, and he didn't come. All right, that's what. That's telling a story. Being a story is this. It's fucking 5:15. That asshole said he was gonna be here at 4:50, and he's not here. Fuck that guy. I'm in this tower. I'm stuck in this stupid tower, and I can't get out until he gets here. Which of those two do you want to watch? It's a rhetorical question. Thank you. Or it's an answering a rhetorical question. Another of the viewpoints is architecture. Architecture is, yes, it's the wall, the ceiling, the floor, but it's also an object. So I have this object. This is my object. Should it break, I'm suddenly going to have an emotional connection to it. You have your space, which has your stuff in it. But if I come over to your space and I steal a book, you know, like you have an emotional connection to me stealing that book. If you're one of my students, and this is what I do in class, and I'm watching you use a pen, you know, you're working with a pen, and whose pen is that? If you're using the pen, it's not a trick question. If you're using the pen, whose pen is it?
Yeah, the person who uses it. So
it's your pen. It's your pen, right? If I grab it and I whip it to the other side of the room in the class, whose pen is it?
Wow. I don't know.
It's everybody's pen. It's everybody's pen, because everybody now has an emotional connection to that pen. A moment ago, they didn't care about that pen, but now they care about that pen because it's like, what the hell, Razowsky? Why did you toss Monica's pen over there? And suddenly now they're involved in it. So that's architecture. Architecture also includes light and sound and names and words and those sort of things too. Another one is repetition. Repetition is one of the things that most taxes the ego. And I do a lot of repetition. I feel that repetition helps ground an actor. So, and I think that it's at what the core of Sanford Meisner's work is. Again, I didn't really study him, but it's repetition. What are you doing? I'm standing. What? You're standing. You're standing. I'm standing. You're standing. I'm standing. You're standing. Why is there that repetition? That repetition is there for you to feel what's going on. And when you and I are in a scene, I am going to repeat some of your words for one reason, to remind you what your point of view is, and two, to keep us grounded in the scene. Yeah. Because that in itself, suddenly that word, whatever it is that we're repeating, is now architecture. That word has an emotional commitment to it. That word has emotional content to it. Another of viewpoints is topography. Topography. Let me see if did you let me share this? No, you don't let me share that. That's okay. Topography is when you're here we go. Let me see. Topography is how you move on the stage, right? So if you and I are in a scene and I'm pacing like this is my topography. This is the way that I'm doing it. So this is, and I'm in repetition of this topography. I'm also in duration of this tempo, and I'm I'm in duration of this tempo, and I'm just moving, and then suddenly you say something and I stop. That's changed the scene, and whatever made me stop is what our dialogue is involved in now, the second beat.
Yeah, and also reaction in it, right? Because then it's a reaction of your character to what have been said, right? So that's
absolutely. And these things aren't something that these things aren't something that we have to think about. These are just emotional reactions we're having to whatever's going on. I don't know if that's 9. Duration, spatial relationship, repetition, topography, architecture, shape, kinesthetic response,
tempo. And we will make a list later. I will write
gesture. I did that, and it was like, oh, what did I just do? Gesture, yay! Nine. And so when I'm teaching, what I've been doing lately is starting my classes with kinesthetic response, so people can start out their scenes knowing, here's tabula rasa. This is the feeling that we're having. This is what's going on right now, and that's all we have happening.
I will look in online. I found some short clips of Meisner teaching, and I think you would like to see it, because it's like in 5 minutes you learn so much, because he's coaching his students, which are actors. He's coaching them to react and to see what have been said and what's the subtext of the words, because when you say the sentence and how you say it, with tempo, volume, and so on, it changes the meaning. So he's teaching this stuff, and it's just few minutes, but like it's really great stuff to just get inspired. But anyway,
yeah.
you do this.
No, stuff. But no, I absolutely. And again, I've never studied his work, but the people that I know that have studied Meisner, they've studied him for a really long time. And it's one of those things where you're talking about, do you stay with somebody for a long time? I've had actors that think that they know Meisner, and I know right away if they've had a Meisner class, because they're repeating things like, I'm going to the store, and I'm thinking, you're just repeating it. I'm not getting an emotional connection from what you're doing. And I'll think to myself, I bet they've had less than 3 months of Meisner. So I'll say, how long have you studied Meisner? And they'll go, how'd you know? I'm like, how long? They went, 2 months, but I think I know it. I'm like, oh, no, you don't. You don't know it. Hey, everybody, if you're going to study Meisner, study that guy for a year, 2 years. And if you're looking for somebody to work with, I know the perfect person. So email me.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connected to what we do is also object work, and you are amazing at object work. You're very precise and very creative at that, and you love it, I think, because
I love it.
So
I love it.
So what object work, which is what good object work gives us as improvisers?
It's very interesting that you say that, because I was thinking about what viewpoint object work is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when we all, and I know that you're a deep thinker, and when you really are a deep thinker, and when we have time to go, I'm sure you do this, where you think, I'm gonna figure that out one day. You know, where you go, I got a problem. I'm gonna take a little moment to think about it now. Yeah, I'm not figuring it out, but I'm gonna figure it out one day. And then you have this aha moment years later, where it's like, that's it. So I've been studying the viewpoints probably for 16 years, 15 or 16 years. And it was just last year where I realized which viewpoint object work is. And object work is, okay, you tell me, ready? This coffee is great. Which are the viewpoints?
Oh my God, I don't know, gesture maybe, or...
Gesture, totally gesture, absolutely gesture, 100% gesture. So when I'm watching somebody who is aware of their object work, it's an extension of their emotional connection. And so if I go, listen, I know that you're coming by later, but I'm going to ask you, don't bring Philip. You cannot bring Philip to where you're going. You can't bring him at all. Like, don't bring him at all. Don't bring him. I'm honest to God. Because if you bring him, I'm not going to be here. I'm absolutely not going to be here. I'm telling you right now. He is too fucking much. There's a lot. There's a lot going on with him. Honest to God.
Yeah.
So it's gesture. The idea of what are we getting out of that? And I think a lot of and for me, that was a huge light that went on, where I thought, oh my God, we're teaching people to do object work, but we're not saying why. We're saying, yeah, it helps create the character, but that's not the biggest takeaway. The biggest takeaway is whatever it is that you're doing is an emotional delivery system. And we have to know that all the viewpoints that I'm talking about are all emotional delivery systems. The gesture, the shape, the tempo, that's all the topography. Everything that I'm teaching you, you're getting something emotional out of it. So object work is great. And what I will do is, when I was in Geese Company, working in prisons, there was a guy that was on the bus with us, and he was in the army, and he had some time off, and he was a chemical specialist in the army. So it was like this chemical guy who could kill you in a second. He was also a great mime crazy. So what I would watch him do is, when he was on the bus, because we lived in a school bus that had tables, I would watch him pick up a glass of water, and we'd have a conversation, and he would just do this. And it's like, well, yeah, then I went to the store and I didn't realize that I was doing that, but he would pick a glass of water up and put it down, and pick up a glass of water and put it down. And we'd all be watching him do that, going. And after a while I said, why are you doing that? He said, this is why I'm doing that. So when I put down the water, I know what the weight of the water is. So it became muscle memory for him. He remembers, what does it take? Grabbing on it, lifting it, putting it down, letting it go, grabbing onto it, lifting it, putting it, letting it go. And when we're actors who improvise, we watch everything that everybody does. Mm-hmm. If you go to a bar, watch the bartender, watch her pour a beer, watch what she, watch her wash glasses, watch her take a rag while she's talking to you, going, yeah, is that what you think? I don't think he's coming by later. And then putting up the wine glass in that little slotty guy above your head, right? Or, finishing off your drink like there and it's empty and you just hear, you want another one? I'll top it off. It's free. That was my Chicago accent guy. I'll tap it off. No problem. You shouldn't get the last of the vodka. I'll tap it off. And then take another bottle from the back, bend over, grab it, and then. So I've never seen you around here. Cap hard to open, pouring another one. And always have your pinky out. Right. Always. Why? Because it draws someone's attention in. If I just have it like that, this is a little arrow that goes, point to the thing and have the thing. I've had a lot of free time growing up. And I spent a lot of time in the mirror looking like, what does it look like to open a glass? What does it feel like to hold on to things, to be present to everything that you're doing?
But did you play with this when we were a child, playing like this improv games and stuff, or it came later? Was it like, developing, because it's a kind of skill you have to get used to it, and I don't know, maybe train or just doing and learning by doing, but still it takes time to learn that.
I think that what you have to do is watch somebody do that. Mm-hmm. And then be inspired by somebody who's doing that. So I think, and I know, I'm sure I don't know any of these, and forgive my ignorance, but I don't know any Polish comedians from the 30s, if you even had them then. I'm sure you did. Or Polish comedians after the war that you grew up watching on television. And you notice the way that they would do things. So in the United States, there was a comedian, originally had a radio show, and his name was Red Skelton. And Red Skelton was a very, he was a clown, but you would, it wasn't like clown, but he was a clown and he did clowning work. And to watch him have his show and to see how he would do things like, just try to, he was a drunk and trying to, get a glass of water, and it'd be like, and you would watch him just try, the simple but impossible task where it's just got to stand up, and you would watch him do that. And as a kid, you go, that's funny. I want to try to do that. That's funny. Or somebody named Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye. Do you know who Danny Kaye is? Nope. Fantastic, a fantastic actor. And he, again, dancer, comedian, clown, and you just watched him. He was lithe. He knew every movement that he'd ever made. And when you watch people like that, you get inspired by people like that, and then you get to try things like that. And then you have people in your improv group or there's a Scott Adsit. You know Scott?
I never met him, but I know.
Yeah, Scott Adsit was in my, he and I took classes together at Second City, and I would watch him do mime work, and his mime work was great. Pete Holney, who's in Beer Shark Mice, his mime work was great. Watch people do mime work. Don't be afraid of it. And no, again, if you and I are in a scene and you want to fucking have mime work, I'm not going to judge you at, are you Marcel Marceau? I'm going to look at you and say, what is it that you're trying to get to accomplish? Mm-hmm. What is it you're trying to tell me?
Okay, David, I don't know how we are about the time because I still have plenty of things I can ask you.
Well, ask me a couple questions and then, because I think I've got at least another 40 minutes.
All right.
I have a show tomorrow night. Stacy's not here, a group that I've been with for 20 years, I think. And we have a rehearsal. Oh, and it's our third or fourth rehearsal online. And I think that more improv groups have to have rehearsal before they go up on, put their show up. Because I don't want to watch you have a hard time with the technology.
Mm-hmm. I will come back to that because, let's do it because it's now on the spot. You travel a lot and you're teaching a lot and you are away from home for quite a long time during the year. So coming back to having a group, and I don't know, I guess you don't perform with a group, which is right. So do you miss that? What's good about being in the group, and how you feel about it now because you don't have the group to play with on the regular basis?
Right. Well, we haven't played together in probably 3 years, and this is a reunion show that we're having. And before that, we had a reunion show 3 years ago. This is a reunion show. We had a reunion show 3 years ago. We hadn't performed for 3 years even before that. But when we did perform, we performed once a week for probably 10 years or 12 years. This is the exciting thing is there's a guy named Peter Marietta, and Peter Marietta put this group together. And he said, very interesting thing that he said, I'm putting a band together and each person in this group plays a different instrument. Mm-hmm. And that's how I picked everybody. And it was a genius move. And I love the way that these people's minds work. I love playing with them. There's no ego. No one is in charge. Everybody is there to help the other person perform. And I love duos, and I do a lot of duo work. I mean, I fucking love it so much. But a great thing about a group is being able to connect with that many people and to listen on that Del Close Gestalt level and to know that you've worked with this person. And if I make one move, I'm thinking, I bet I know exactly who's going to come out and support me in this move. Right. I know exactly who's going to do that. I just love these people. I really, really love these people. And the thing that you learn at Second City is what a good ensemble is and working with a good ensemble. And the people that you want to work with in an ensemble are the people that don't have, and it goes back to that epiphany that I had where people just go, I don't care. I'm here to support you, and that's all that matters. That's it. Because we're all professionals. All 6 of us are pretty well known in what it is that we do, and nobody is there to show off, and nobody's there to go, well, I have to show you that in the 3 years that we weren't working, I have done 9 pilots. It's like, no one cares. I don't care. Don't do that.
Do you miss to have a more connection to the group playing during the year, or you would?
I'm so busy. I don't really think about those things.
And you play a lot, right? You play.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do when I'm on the road is because I'm on the road and I'm by myself on the road. I will arrange to play with whoever wants to play with me. So a lot of my play is with people who I have no idea who they are. I just don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. I don't know how they play. I don't know where they got their training, but I will do a 2-person scene with them. And if I like it, we'll do it again. And if I don't, we won't. That's the way I work.
So I'm going forward. What's a good scene for you?
What is a good scene for me?
Yeah?
What makes up a good scene for me?
What makes a good scene? Or what?
Two people who don't care about the outcome. 2 people who are sitting there and just being with each other in that moment. 2 people who, and I don't take, this is a hard thing for a lot of people, is I don't take suggestions, and we just start out with shape. And when I teach, I don't teach you getting out the exposition at the beginning of the scene, the who, the what, and the where at the beginning of the scene. I don't want to do that. I feel like the 2 of us are exploring this thing together, and I'm not bringing anything into the scene other than an awareness of your shape, your tempo, and what you have to offer. So that makes a good scene for me. And another good scene for me is, did we listen? Are we listening to each other? Are we paying attention right now and listening to each other? Do you have an idea of what I want you to do? Do I have an idea of what I want you to do? Are we aware of the beat that we're playing in that moment? Because really, the beat is the only thing that matters. That beat. What is the beat that we're playing in that moment? And anything outside of a beat being a section of a scene, anything outside of this section that we're playing right now doesn't matter to me.
So when you take suggestion, when it's like not by purpose, because I know you're playing without suggestions, but you play in the shows where there are suggestions. So how you treat them, because to me very often happens, especially if it's long suggestion or like monologue or somebody's reading something, so many information that I usually have to summarize something and just pick one thing, because otherwise it takes me out of being present. So how you treat then the suggestion, how you pick it? You pick it and throw it and then you forget about it, or you bring them later? How your mind works with that?
There's so many questions, and they're all really good questions. I'll start with one. Say that you're doing an Armando. An Armando would be somebody's having a monologue, and there are 8 actors, on the side, and this monologuist, however you say it, is doing this and having this monologue. And what are you doing on the sideline? And when I say what are you doing, it's like, what are you thinking about? First off, are you coming in with an empty mind, ready to fill up your mind with what they're saying? Or are you coming in with, this has to be a good show, I really like this group, I'm really happy, Kevin's in the audience, later on we're going to go to the bar, and you're not listening to what's going on. So when somebody gives a monologue, and I'm doing a monologue show, I'm listening and I'm putting things on shelves in my mind. And what I'm looking for are words that stand out, because it doesn't matter conceptually what it is. It's just like, if someone says a word and it's funny, I'll put it in there. If someone says, my father did this, I'll put it in there. And I'll have 5 or 6 things in my mind, so that if I'm not the first person out who will exhaust one of the ideas, I got 5 other things that I can play with. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm certainly not going to recreate the scene that I see. If it's a monologue and I'm able to go, oh, that monologue's about deceit, someone lying to somebody else, I'm going to do a scene about lying, or I'm going to start a scene about lying. Whether it happens or not, it's up to my partner. I also think that we're not teaching improvisers how to deconstruct a suggestion. Yeah. We are like, how many scenes have you seen where it's like, it's a doctor's office, and then we fucking go to a doctor's office? It's like, don't take me to a doctor's office. So I was doing a show. Do you know Stefan from Denmark?
Probably, or
okay, they had
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so Stefan, Jay Suko, and I were doing a 3-person show at the Space in Denmark. And Stefan is he's just a troublemaker. And he knows that I don't take suggestions. So he goes, all right, we're going to do a scene right now. What's going to happen is David is going to come out and he's going to get a suggestion. And I'm like, okay, you fucker, I see what you're doing. So David, why don't you come out and tell him a suggestion? So I come out and it's like, all right, what's a bill that you have that's making you nervous? And someone said, a water bill. And I'm like, great. So this is how I started the scene. Where were you last night? Not about the water bill, but I use water. That's it. There we go. I use water. I use water, right? So water inspired me. It inspired me to be in the kitchen, and that's it. Let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, water bill, it's like, oh, and then the next scene is like, oh, Carlos, we can't pay the water bill. Really?
We almost run out of time, so I will just quickly go then to. I have 2 things which I will maybe point. One is being present once more. What's for you like? It's a very important thing for you in improv. So will you how did you discover being present? Like, you know, because it's also kind of a process. It's not coming to improviser like from nothing. Sometimes from teachers, sometimes from experience, or both. And what was your
right? I was in. I've always. That's a really good. You're such a good interviewer. I've been doing this for so long, and I was always looking for what was the one thing that I did differently than other people. And it's not in order for me to market my skills. It's sort of like, why do people think one way and people think another way? What is it that draws me to something? And as I said, alluded to earlier, one of the things that I noticed was scenes went so much better when I just mirrored my partner. And in order to mirror your partner, you've got to be present to what your partner is doing. And I also said, what was the one thing that my epiphany was? And my epiphany was the idea of don't care, no judgment. You've done what you've done. The moment has happened, right? And it was before I learned about the viewpoints. I was on my way to, I remember the Santa Cruz Improv Festival in Northern California, and I was at at LAX, the airport, and I was at the bookstore there, and I came across a book in the bookstore called Buddhism Plain and Simple by a guy named Steve Hagen. And I picked it up and I went through some of the pages and I thought, this is the greatest improv book ever written by someone who has no idea that they wrote an improv book, because it dealt with being in the moment, being present to what's happening, not worrying about where it's going, not having any premonition of what's going on, being unattached to outcome, and allowing the scene to appear when the scene needed to appear. And I poured over that book and I just earmarked it. And then I started reading more books about mindfulness, Thich Nhat Hanh books, Thich Nhat Hanh book on mindfulness. And I started to put together that all that matters is my emotional connection to what's happening. All that matters most is my presence and emotional connection to what's happening in that moment. And if I came into a scene with what I felt had to happen, the scene would never go that direction. Whatever you think is going to happen, you're wrong. And if you think that you know where the scene is, you're not listening. And that's something that I learned. And so I started to watch people more and engage in what it was that they were doing that emotionally affected me. And as that kept going on, I started to read things. I read a book called My Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor, are you familiar with her TED Talk?
Yeah, not with, but
yeah. The book is phenomenal too. The book is really great, and it's essentially about taking the moment and making the best out of that moment. That's essentially what it's about. And my work started to be more connected, and I started to find my own point of view as things went on. And I started to look at people differently and listen to people on a subdermal level and notice not just what they're saying, but how they say it, what their hands are doing. And being a photographer, and you know what this is like because you're also a graphic artist, being a photographer, you're also taking in the emotional impact of the picture that's in front of you. So you're not just looking at me, you're also looking at, and if I know you, you're looking at the negative space that's around me. You're looking at the shapes that's here. You're looking at what's that thing over there, that's corkboard. You're looking at all these elements, and these elements have an emotional impact. But if you're walking into a scene and going, my teacher says I have to get the who, the what, and the where at the beginning of the scene. I can't deny and I can't ask questions. I can't talk about people who aren't there. And what else? I always have to have something going on. It's like, what the fuck just happened? And if you're bringing in all that bullshit, it's all noise, and I can't hear myself feel. I can't hear myself feel. It's not that I can't hear myself think. It's that I can't hear myself feel.
That's a great answer. So last question. I leave another one. So there's few still, which maybe we can do one more when you write your book and come back to.
When I finish my book.
Yeah. So when you finish your book, and you will finish.
Monica, I swear I feel like I'm almost finished.
Almost there. So
anyway, go ahead.
What's the book about? What is this book about? Why are you writing this book, and what you want to put there?
The book is called A Subversive's Guide to Improvisation. And subversive means a way of thinking about something that is against society's edicts, I suppose would be a way to say it. And it's not the way that most people do things. The book is, at the core of the book is this. Please be at peace feeling what it is that you're feeling in that moment, and know that you are a special and unique creature on this planet, and we cannot wait to hear what it is that you have to say.
Great summary.
I don't know that I've ever said it so succinct, but you brought that out. And that's called an elevator pitch, I suppose. You know, like you've got one floor to tell somebody your story.
So you write about your methodology in it?
Well, it's yes, I read about my methodology, but I also I read about my methodology. Right now, I'm writing a memoir portion. So a lot of stuff that we talked about today, maybe it'll make it in the book. I don't know. So it's memoir, methodology, exercise, and followed up with a transcription of my TED Talk. So it's really, it's methodology. It's how I got to teaching what it is that I'm teaching, and then teaching what it is that I'm teaching, and then giving you exercises of how to teach what it is that I'm teaching to you and to your friends. I was not going to do an exercise portion, but one day I had an epiphany in Denver, Colorado, going, I got to do this. So, and again, you helped a lot in that when you read that. That was really good. A lot of great notes. But it really, it's about you accepting yourself as an artist and having the courage, and you giving yourself the courage to express yourself without judgment.
Great. That was a great talk.
It was a great talk, and it's your fault.
Thank you for joining and for having time. And yeah, that's
oh my God, you're welcome. What time is it over there?
It's 1:30.
And I'm about to make dinner.
It's middle of the night.
Okay, good. All right. I love you, and let's talk later.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me, and yeah, that was lovely.
Great. Is that it?
Shall we improvise?
You want to? I'll do that.
I would.
Okay, let's do a 5-minute scene.
Yeah, just short one, right? Because
yeah, sure one, right?
Because I spent so much time on talking to you or asking you. So
okay, let's find a different way to do it. Oh, you're still up?
yeah, waiting for you.
Oh, you don't have to wait for me. I'm surprised you're still awake.
I'm waiting for you.
You don't really have to wait for me. You know, if you want, you can go to bed.
I'm really waiting for you.
Yeah, I heard that, but why don't you go to bed? You don't have to be up anymore.
I'm not sleeping.
Well, you could take one of your sleeping pills. Just you can go upstairs and take one of your sleeping pills if you want.
Yeah, I know I can take them, but I'm not sleeping. I'm just waiting for you. I want to see you.
Well, here I am. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is that all?
I think, unless you wanted to talk about something more, but it looks like, look, it's really late, and why don't you can go to bed if you want. You can go right to bed.
I want to see you. I want to be.
Oh.
Yeah. Come in. Like.
What's that?
Come in.
Oh, give me a second. Just give me 1 second. That's great. I have to come in. I gotta come in if you want. I guess I'll talk to you later. Don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later. Great. Yeah. No. I just had to make sure that I put the car alarm on.
Mark.
One second. Give me just one. Yeah. You can go if you want. You don't have to stay here. You can just leave. That's cool. Great. No, you stop it. You stop it. Great. Cool. Take it easy.
I really want to see you, and I don't know, share with you not only nights but days.
Mm-hmm.
Days.
Sure.
Did I
sure days? Yeah.
Days too?
Can I just put a pin in this conversation? Just give me 1 second here. It's like, yeah, I had a feeling you were still here. Why don't you can go if you want to go. You can go. You can go if you want to leave. That's great. Okay, cool. Great. I'll see you later. Sorry, I just yeah, we put a pin in that. Yeah. So you want to go on dates and things like that. That's fine. That works. Yeah.
I see it's not working.
No, it's perfectly working.
No, I see. I mean, it's totally not working. That's the truth. It's not working. I made something up in my head, and then it's not working. I just see it's not working.
What did you make up in your head? It's probably what's happening right now, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's? No, I just see that I made up the story that I will now sit here and wait for you, and you will come, and that we will share these pancakes I prepared, and that we spend time together. And
wait. You made pancakes?
Yes, with cream, with sour cream.
You made pancakes for me?
Oh, yeah.
With sour cream?
With sour cream, with a little bit of sugar powder and chocolate.
You put sugar powder to the chocolate on it?
Yes. And I have a orange juice to it. You
didn't make orange juice for me, fresh squeezed orange juice?
Fresh, specially squeezed for you, and there's this chair prepared, and table, and candles.
But you don't have berries on the side, do you? Like little raspberries?
Of course I have them. I have berries.
I don't deserve you. That was not an easy thing for you. You are too good.
I'm not. I just did what I do when I like somebody. So I just prepared that. It's just.
Wait, you like me?
I like you.
I had no idea. How would I know that? Honest to God, like how do people know that other people like them?
I don't know. Sometimes they feel something and sometimes they express. I didn't say that, I know, but I thought that I showed you. Maybe not enough.
Well, probably. I just didn't know that you liked me. I thought you were just being friendly, like a friendly person.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Maybe I'm friendly, I don't know, but
it seems like you're friendly. I mean, a friendly person is going to make pancakes with sour cream, a side, fresh squeezed orange juice, and a side of berries for somebody, and set the table up with a candle. I mean, that, it's like apparently that's. I'm going to come right out and say it. I don't think I've ever had anybody like me before.
What?
This is yeah.
No. You're such a nice and warm person, and how can you feel that like nobody told you?
No one's ever said I was a warm person.
You are warm. You're such a warm and kind and beautiful soul, and caring, awesome, beautiful, good, amazing, great.
And here I was missing out on the breakfast. I was with some buddies and we robbed a liquor store and we beat the hell out of a guy and threw him in a dumpster. And here I could have come home and had pancakes with you.
Yeah.
And apparently you're my wife. Did I have that right?
In my imagination?
No, in real life, I noticed that you have a ring and I have a ring. I'm thinking.
Yeah. I would like to. In my imagination, I would like to.
But what about real life? I mean, like right now, I have a ring and you have a ring, and there's a lot of. I noticed there are pictures of children that look like you and me. We have children. Yeah. I don't know how I never saw that. I don't know how I never saw that. And that thing that happened, there was a wedding, right? That party.
Yeah.
That we had like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You forgot?
I didn't forget. I just never put one and one together. That's on me. That's my fault. I never put it together. Like I was like, oh, this is a party. My family's there, your family's there. I was like, I guess this is just a party.
Yeah. Well, I will eat that pancakes alone.
Can I have some?
Sure.
And scene. That was really fun. That was longer than 5 minutes.
It was.